taking that extra step of vetting who you're consuming content, I think is a really important part of that learning process. What do you think, Mike? How are you learning? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're on fucking YouTube.
Well, that's true, and we're not experts in anything. Nope. I'm good because it is finally spring here. The sun is out. It is warm. I do much better in the warm weather, so I'm loving that where we are. It actually got me thinking about a common phrase that you like to say, which is that you only get one shot at this life, so you better enjoy it or make the most of it. And I definitely make the most of it when the weather is nice outside. It also got me thinking
that for you.
I love that for me too. Thank you. I hope others can agree with the nice weather. But also got me thinking that phrase, or the nice weather made me think of the phrase, which also kind of inspired this week's topic about lifelong learning. Another way to try to get the most out of life is to kind of keep learning new skills or trying to expand your understanding. And I know this is something, Mike, you and I have talked about before together, not on the podcast, but just we're both big believers in the idea of lifelong learning and trying to learn new skills or grow personally. And so it turns out we're not alone. There's some great information or some research behind this. So the first survey I'm going to touch on is from AARP, which I know we're not that old yet, but their survey polled people who are 40s. I know. I was very hesitant to even bring it up, but it had good research in it, and it talked with folks in their 40s, which we are most certainly. And it found that for that 55% of people who are over 40 are actively learning new things. And then in the UK, there was a great study from the Learning and Work Institute that found that 55% of adults there who are between 35 and 45 are currently learning or have done so in the past 3 years. That's great to hear that so many people are trying to learn new skills. And I think as we'll talk today, maybe this is less about sort of traditional school learning and more about just trying to learn new things to, again, enrich ourselves as individuals and to hopefully have more full and exciting lives. So you ready, Mike? Are we going to talk about learning new stuff?
Let's do it. Lifelong learning.
There we go. So I guess let's start by talking about what things are midlifers, those of us who are in Gen X and older millennials, what are we learning? So I was pulling together some information for this episode and I learned something new. There you go. I learned about a new group in the United States called the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute Network, which is a group of 124 colleges and universities that offer continuing education classes. Lots of folks might be familiar with these classes that colleges and universities offer for people who want to just learn something new, and it's not really for like college credit.
Wait, I'm hoping you're not just learning about the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute.
I had not heard of them before, so yes,
it's literally at the University of Richmond where we went.
Oh, it's one of the schools that has it, I've discovered. Yes, this is a fun thing.
You should feel embarrassed for yourself.
Wait, you knew about I had no idea. I mean, I knew like schools had continuing education programs, but I didn't know like that there was a whole institute that studied this stuff. That's okay. Mm-hmm. Well, there you go. I've learned 2 things. 1 about this and 2 that I should have known it already. So I feel like I am in the plus column for today. Well, let's get to some of the research that they did that apparently is well known. So they looked at the top topics or classes that older adults or midlifers are learning, especially in college and university kind of extension programs. And so those topics included history, art, photography, crafts, and health and wellness were the big ones, which all kind of make sense. Those are all fun things to learn about. Another area that has seen a lot of growth too is cooking classes, people learning how to cook or different types of cooking, which I can relate to and definitely understand. And so there's a great study or 2025 report from Market Intello that looked at the global cooking class market, which is going to more than double from about $3 billion in 2024 to $6.7 billion in 2033. And one of the key drivers are millennials who are learning cooking classes, either in person or virtually.
I hope that means when I go over to my friends' houses for dinner that they are much better cooks than they usually are.
Wow. Are you taking any cooking classes, Mike? I mean,
I have been taking cooking classes. Yes.
Good. So we fit in. Yes. I love cooking classes too. I just think they're really fun to do, and I mean, I think like most people, we love to eat, so, keep taking those cooking classes, folks. But the final thing that midlifers are learning the most about, which I know you can relate to, are new languages. So,
Mhm.
according to Duolingo, 41% of millennials and 46% of Gen Xers said that they're learning a new language. And Duolingo's research also found that the older the user is, the more likely they continue their streak of continuing to use the program and learn new languages, and that they also have benefits like being more patient and learning something for enrichment rather than a necessity. So, Mike, lots of learning going on in lots of different ways. You mentioned cooking classes. I know you're learning some languages too. Why don't you tell us what it's like to learn something in your 40s instead of, when we were younger?
Absolutely. So, first off, thank you for bringing up this topic. I think it is very important. You and I have always believed in this. I don't think we ever called it lifelong learning
I don't,
until
yeah,
recently, but
learn new
we
stuff.
would call it like professional development or
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that. But yes, so from a language perspective, I am enrolled in two courses, if I can say that. I have tutors um, for two languages, Dutch and Papiament 2 with a U. I have wonderful teachers, and the experience has been incredibly rewarding. So for those of you who may not know, Papiament 2 with a U is a Creole language spoken on the islands of Curacao and Bonaire. Um, More Americans are familiar with Papiamento, um, which is close, but there's some big differences, and that's spoken on Aruba. A lot of Americans go to Aruba, and so they're more familiar with that. Um, so, learning a new language in my 40s is an interesting and challenging experience. Um, but the challenges, I suppose, are really centered around me as an individual. So I take Dutch classes twice a week, and I take Papi Matu 3 times a week. Um, in addition to those classes, I have homework assignments and I need to study, but I also have my life and work responsibilities on top of that. When I was in school, my whole job was to go to school and to learn, and that was what I was supposed to be doing. Um, so, when I started taking French in school, I had more time to do that homework because I was literally at school. Um,
Now you're going to pay
my
some bills too.
I know my responsibility is not to learn Dutch and Papiamento, but god damn it, I'm going to learn it. Um, the other thing that's like really interesting is when you're in school, you can there's clearly a hierarchy. There's clearly a hierarchy that's taking place. You're the student, they're the teacher. Um, Now doing adult learning, and this is true with any class, I suppose, it's like the teacher student dynamic is just so different. Like
Hmm.
my Dutch teacher texted me something early this morning because she's in Amsterdam or Rotterdam. Um, and it was kind of this like really funny but really inappropriate way that Dutch say certain things. I mean, you would never send this to a child, but you know, it was fun. It was funny, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Now I know how to say that particular phrase in Dutch, um, in case I ever need that phrase.
So you're learning lots of inappropriate things to use in everyday conversations.
Exactly. You know what?
It's a good
Every
skill.
single language curses and says very inappropriate things as well.
It's
It's no
true.
different. So,
Yeah. Well, that's a
um,
good question I had for you though about the dynamic. Is it weird being an adult and like having a tutor or teacher? Like they probably can't really scold you as much, right? Like I always remember as a kid, you were always afraid to get the teacher upset or something, right? Because you didn't want to get yelled at. But I'm sure you're going to do your work anyway, but now are you just like, yeah, you can't really yell at me.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's and I will say I work very diligently to not to always do my homework and to study. But there are some days where it just doesn't fucking happen. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't do my homework. And what are they gonna they're like, okay, well try getting to it next time. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, I'll get to it. So yeah, the dynamic is very different. I
Yeah.
mean, yet again, I am proactively reaching out. I am proactively taking a course that I um, think will make me a better rounded individual. It is not like school in which you have a responsibility to be there and to get good
Yeah.
grades and things like that. So the dynamic is very different. Um, but you know, the other things that I'm doing, the cooking classes, you and I have done cooking classes
We
together,
have. Yeah.
cocktail making classes.
Oh,
That is
that's a good
super fun
one.
doing cocktail
Yeah.
making classes. If y'all haven't done that, do that. That's cool. Because you can make some really cool cocktails. And then Andrew and I have like a dozen different certifications and accreditations,
Yeah.
which mean we have to do lots of continuing education. So that's in the mix as well. But
For
you know,
work stuff, yeah. I was thinking about more just like personally trying to think about like
yeah.
extra learning, but I think you're right. There's a lot of different types of educations that happen. Well, as I've told you before too, kudos to you for trying to learn 2 languages at once. That sounds crazy to me. It also sounds like not to always bring back to kids, but like not having kids versus having kids. I'm just stressed at the idea of like having the time to do all of that. In fact, I've actually taken a slightly different tack with the languages. Want to pick up Spanish, which I did study in school for a number of years and try to refresh and learn that some more because I think it would be helpful. And my older son is starting to take Spanish in school too. So I think it'd be kind of a cool thing to kind of work through together a little bit. But like you, one challenge I have is just the prioritization. So I need to really just force myself to like turn off Netflix or Apple TV after the kids go to bed and spend some time like refreshing Spanish or I like to use there's an app that I use to help with like, language. So we'll see how that goes. That's a goal I have. But yeah, kudos to you for doing multiple languages. Would love to hear if our listeners are learning new languages or new stuff.
The trick, Andrew,
Oh,
he says
yes.
with a
With a
with a child
baby.
sleeping on him, is uh at night watch Netflix in Spanish. Prefers
Oh,
one
that's
sound.
actually not a bad idea.
Talk to the kids in Spanish. This is what my
In
wife does.
Spanish.
She's a non-native language, a non-native Spanish speaker, but she's fluent and she's raising our kids in Spanish. And so she
That's
just like
awesome. Yeah.
speaks to them in Spanish. Like you just
Yeah.
raise the kids in Spanish. You watch the shows. You watch shows with the kids in Spanish. I'm telling you,
In
I my
Spanish. Yeah.
Spanish has improved significantly watching Peppa in Spanish.
Oh, that's a really
So
good idea. Yeah.
so you'll do that journey with them.
Nice. Not to get off on a crazy tangent, but I actually did watch there's a great show on Netflix called Money Heist with folks might have seen. That's from Spain. It's very good and it's in Spanish, so maybe I need to rewatch that is what you're
I
telling me.
dropped off after season one. It was too
Oh,
tangential and soap opera-y,
it
and
gets good if you
didn't
stick
go
with
for it.
it, but
Yeah.
great advice on watching stuff in Spanish. I like that, or in a different language. Yeah. I think it is just finding ways, especially in midlifers, trying to balance lots of things. Just how do we try to prioritize or make time for this stuff? To your point too, though, Mike, about the cooking classes, that is something else that I know we both have done. I really like to do. I'm kind of excited too because you're going to be joining my family on a trip this summer, a cruise. And one of the classes, or there's a steak class about how to like make steak properly on or during the time that we're on the ship. And so we're going to take that class. I know my wife and sons are going to take a pizza making class. So I think that's kind of a fun way too to bring learning into travel. And it's actually like a booming industry now, kind of a culinary tourism, which is another great way for lifelong learning.
I will also be taking a martini making class.
Oh, there
So
you go. So you can have a nice steak and then get drunk. It sounds like, or drink while you're making the
steak
steak.
and
Yeah,
martini.
there you go. So now that we've talked about some of the types of things that we midlifers are kind of continuing to learn about or new skills that we're trying to pick up, also it'll be interesting to focus on the how. How are we learning? And obviously, for a very long time, it was really in person. It's what you had to do, no matter what stage of life or phase of life you were in. now, and especially since COVID, there's been a huge boom in virtual learning or hybrid learning, which is a mix of virtual and in person. And the research is showing that that's what's happening, and midlifers in particular are actually leading the way in that sort of dual hybrid approach, because our generation is unique that we kind of have a foot in both worlds. And so there was an interesting uh, e-learning industry story from last year that specifically talked about how millennials in particular grew up around technology in their school years, but also remember like the traditional classroom setting when we use textbooks and encyclopedias for stuff. And so that's one of the reasons we're driving this kind of dual or hybrid approach to learning, which I thought was kind of interesting. And not surprisingly, too, if we're looking at virtual learning trends, YouTube is a place that a lot of people go for learning new skills or to try to understand something. In fact, a Pew Research Center study from 2025 found that 85% of US adults use YouTube, including 94% who are between 30 and 49, and 86% between 50 and 64. There's also a Verge story from last year that said that one of the primary reasons the majority of YouTube users say they're on there is to learn something new. So that's kind of, I thought, an interesting trend, that the sort of YouTube effect of helping people learn. I do think there's an important caveat here, though, as I tell my kids all the time, just because it's on YouTube doesn't make it true. And in fact, a lot of the times, if it's on YouTube, it probably isn't true. So I think we do need to be careful about not just saying, oh, I saw it on YouTube, so this person must be an expert or be able to teach me what it is that I'm trying to learn. So taking that extra step of vetting who you're consuming on YouTube, I think, is a really important part of that learning process. But what do you think,
Yes,
Mike?
I
How are you
agree.
learning? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're on fucking YouTube.
Well,
and
that's
we're
true. And we're not
anything.
experts in anything. Nope.
So it really depends on what I'm trying to learn. At 42, I guess I'm in the Zennial category, where we're both in the Zennial category, which is like, that weird space between millennial and Gen X. So,
Right.
we kind of grew up with computers when we were younger, but I mean, the computer was so shitty, and all you did was like play Oregon Trail or like
Love Oregon
paintbrush on
Trail.
that.
Yes.
You weren't taking notes. You weren't
Right.
reading things. I mean, the internet, wasn't really a thing for us until high school.
Yeah.
And
Late middle
even
school,
then,
maybe even early high school was, yeah.
even then, the internet was just a place you just found porn. You didn't do research on.
Okay. Well, I use the internet for other things, but okay.
There wasn't anything there at the time.
There were like news sites on there. Yeah, but anyway. Yeah.
Shit, there were not no news sites. And then you did like AOL chat.
You could, yeah, that's true. Instant Messenger, that was
Instant Messenger.
And the dial-up sounds.
Yeah, or you downloaded copywritten music. That's what the internet was
Yes,
there
that's
for.
true. That's very fair. God, kids don't know these days. You'd download the music and like burn it onto a CD, right? To, like,
Exactly. That's what the internet was there for at the time. You didn't research for a paper on the internet. You had to go to the fucking library. Whether it be high school library or your college or university library. And you also knew, what else you needed? To know the Dewey Decimal System to find a fucking book.
Do you remember the card catalog? Right? To go up and pull out the long drawer and oh man.
Absolutely. Something that these kids, I was talking to some guy the other day, and I guess all of their textbooks are just, you download them. You buy them and you download them to your iPad. I was like,
so there's not like paper anymore.
There's no more textbooks. You go to a college bookstore now and it's all, there's no books in there anymore. You just download your textbooks.
You know what's not fun about that? I remember as a kid going to our local library a bunch of times to like do research, and you pull out like an old encyclopedia and open it up and it would still have like the USSR and stuff in there. And you'd be like, oh, this thing's a little bit out of date. Kids will never know that the magic of that.
Yeah, but so when I say I tend to be a little bit more old fashioned with things.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, you read the fucking textbook in front of you and you took notes. You know, you didn't sit there and download a book and like whatever you do with a downloaded textbook. Um, so, you know, um, for things like the language courses, you know, I've got books, physical books that I can do stuff in. I mean, yes, the interaction between the teachers is online, but it's just me and the teacher. So, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's not as though, you know, it's like this whole virtual class. And I have taken some online classes, mainly for the on the professional
Hmm.
development side of things, and they're fine. I probably couldn't tell you a single fucking thing I can remember from any of them. Um, you know, I just feel like you got to do certain things physically, especially
Yeah.
like things like the cooking courses, and the cocktail making classes. You need to understand why these flavors are working together. And experiencing those flavors. And I don't think you can do that through a web-based course. Um, you bringing up YouTube is interesting because, as I said, we're on fucking YouTube. So, I mean, there's a lot of
Hmm.
garbage out there.
You can cite
But
us in anything. Go for
yeah.
it.
But like from the language perspective, I do know because I've gotten recommendations from the Dutch teacher and the Poppy Mender teacher of certain folks that do just put up some videos, like quick things. They're not going to give away
Hmm.
so much, but about certain grammatical issues or things like that. And they are very valuable, just to hear a different perspective on something. And then I also, you know, YouTube there are some reputable organizations like National Geographic, BBC,
Yeah.
the History Channel that put these documentaries on there, which are for free. And I love that. I mean, I can sit there and have a documentary running in the background, and, you know, learn something while I'm cooking dinner or something like that. You should
Now
also
you
do
really
that
sound
by
like an old man. Just that
I
sounds
do,
like
it
I've
do. But you know what? You should also have our podcast listening in the
That's right.
background so you can learn something.
Just on
Be
loop
sure
or
to like
watch
and
us on
subscribe.
YouTube. Yes, consistently. Just keep playing. No, I mean I think you're right. I sort of find myself in the same way. I think like a lot of, midlifers in the sense that I sort of, and in both camps, like I do find a lot of value in person, but there is a convenience to virtual learning for some new things that can be really helpful. And I think to your point too, it kind of depends on what it is. Like with the cooking stuff, for sure, I do a lot better with that in person because I get kind of your hands on and have like the tactile experience. I think is part
Mhm.
of learning that type of a skill. But then there are other things that I think it's like a combination. It's like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Um, I have a small vegetable garden. I wanted to expand it, and so I did like a multi-month like deep dive into like container gardens and like raised gardens and how to like different organic methods. Just 'cause I was interested in trying something different. I have to say, like, it was cool to find blogs and other sources or like gardening websites that could go really deep on a topic that I probably wouldn't have had access to without the internet. But then layering on top of that with like some YouTube videos to actually visibly see something and even talking to like the local nursery about specific questions that I had. So I don't know, I feel like I kind of stack different things together to try to have a more kind of rounded or holistic experience, which I think is probably what a lot of midlifers do. But we'd love to hear from you all. How are you learning? Are you still a fan of trying to go in person to something? Are you doing more online and YouTube? And what do you love most about YouTube? And why is it our show? We'd love to have you answer all of those questions. But in all seriousness, like let us know what you all are thinking and how you're learning, because I think it would be interesting to hear what others are doing as they try to have their own personal growth and expand to get some new skills. But with that, let's talk about kind of our third and final topic, which is something, again, that I know we're both big believers in, Mike, which is the benefit of continuing to learn and of learning new skills. And so there was this great Forbes article from 2024 that outlined the benefits of learning new skills later in life, including midlifers. And I thought this really just perfectly captured what those benefits are. So they outline things like boosting self confidence and self esteem, improving memory and cognitive function by constantly learning new things, It helped to reduce stress and anxiety by providing a sense of accomplishment and purpose. Also, as you mentioned before, Mike creates additional career opportunities with professional development and career enhancement. It also talked about how there are some social benefits to learning new skills too, because it gives you a new way to interact with people, a new topic of conversation with folks that might have a similar interest as you do. So there really are a lot of fantastic benefits from continuing to learn and trying to expand your skill set. And now I'm going to sound like an old man for a second here because it had a great quote from the philosopher Seneca in the article that I thought just really, I know, throwing it back to
Wow.
the ancient civilizations. It just really captured, I think, the value that we have when it comes to lifelong learning. And the quote was, as long as you live, keep learning how to live. And that's kind of what it's all about, right? Like life is one big lesson. And part of that is trying to, again, experience it fully, to learn as much as possible, to do as much as possible. So, Mike, do you agree with Seneca?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
of course. Of course. Although my side tangent is because I had a one of my like, puzzles that I do in the morning was like, one of the things that we all had to learn that's just completely fucking worthless in the real world, Greek
What?
mythology.
I don't
What
know.
the
Maybe if
fuck
you're
did what for what? What do you when have you needed Greek mythology in anything in your life?
you have a better understanding of the Odyssey when it comes out this summer, you want to go watch it. I mean,
Oh
there's
God, is
lots
there
of
a new Odyssey movie?
Oh, have you not heard about this? Sorry, now we're getting way off topic. Yes, we'll talk later. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Um, there are nothing but benefits. It comes down from a personal standpoint, from a standpoint within your work, within your relationships with friends and family. There are nothing but benefits to trying to improve yourself every day. I think it's incredibly important. And I know most people try. It is difficult, especially in your midlife years, but you've got to sit there and invest in yourself. You can't let your brain
Yeah.
atrophy. And from a professional standpoint, a few weeks ago we did that episode about AI, and I know a lot of midlifers are scared about what AI could do to their careers, things of that nature. And so a lot of folks are either learning how to use AI or building upon their professional skills to grow in other ways professionally, take new opportunities. But and that's great, but you also have to balance it out with just like the personal things as well.
Yeah.
You can't just be focused on professional development. You've got to learn whether it be cooking or gardening or whatever the fuck you want to learn about. I don't care. It's just history. It's so important to keep your brain active and to keep going because it's such a rewarding experience, not only for you, but for everyone in your life because they can see the impact that lifelong learning has. I mean, and
Yeah.
I'd be definitely curious to hear about your experience, Andrew, when your kids see you taking the initiative to continue to learn, even though you're many, 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 many years outside of school. But I would encourage everybody that's listening or that's watching, rather than go out with your partner or your wife or your husband and just go to dinner to escape the kids, why not take a cooking class together? That way, you're learning something together, or a cocktail making class. Dinner is dinner, which is great. But this way you're doing something together that will enrich both of your lives. Um, and as Andrew mentioned earlier, I am a believer that you only have one shot at life. And I believe integrating that lifelong learning into your journey makes for a richer, happier, and more exciting experience. So I really don't want to be on my deathbed thinking of all the things that I could have done. I want to know that I did as much as I could with the time that I had.
Yeah. And you'll be grateful that you knew Greek mythology, I think, at that point
The
too.
fuck I will. I don't know why the hell. I guess it helped me with my puzzle this morning, and that was
There you
about it.
go. That's it.
I
Yeah.
was like,
No, I
God
mean, I
damn.
think that you're right. Again, I'm a big believer, as we talked, for the past 30 minutes about lifelong learning and kind of continuing to try to, just keep your mind sharp, really. And in fact, we didn't go a ton in this direction, but there is a mountain of, research and studies out there showing that, especially as you continue to age, how important it is to keep learning to ward off things like dementia and Alzheimer's and other, cognitive impairments that a lot more common as people get older. So, I mean, there's that piece of it that's really, really important too. But I do want to touch on what you had mentioned, Mike, about having your kids watch you learn. And I think there's something to that as well, is sort of instilling at a young age. And I feel like my parents were good in this regard with me too, of like the importance of always learning and that it can look like different things, but kind of always trying to gain a new skill or have a deeper understanding about a specific topic. But the kids are definitely watching me and watching us do that. And I think that's valuable. I also think there's like a bonding piece of it there too, because my older son, who's gotten really into basketball, I don't know a whole ton about basketball. I mean, I know how to play basketball, but that's like the extent of it. And so he really has gotten into it though. And so I've taken some extra time to learn more about, basketball and the rules of the game and, the strategy behind specific plays and who some key players are at college and the NBA. So we can have conversations about it. And it's kind of cool to have that bond with him over something that is new and that I got to learn about too. So I think there's that piece of it as well.
That is very cool. I think
Yeah.
that's amazing and good for you. I do think, you have to set an example to show that, like, especially you as a dad, um, learning doesn't stop when you're done with
Right.
school.
It doesn't now.
So you got to keep going. You got to
Yeah.
keep going. All right. So with that, we have blown through 30 minutes. If you're not done so already, please like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you a thing, but it helps us a lot. Remember that you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartMedia, and all your favorite podcast platforms. And until next week, good luck, guys.
See ya.